What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the review and discussion for UnOrdinary, episode 322. Um, some crazy stuff happens in this episode, but I wouldn't say the whole episode itself is fairly crazy. We'll just go ahead and jump right into it. So it starts out with Valerie in her office, figuring out how she's going to be able to murk Sarah. She's definitely plotting murder, let's be real. But Sarah's got the big IQ. Sarah has the big brained IQ thanks to Layla backing her up. And Arlo did let Valerie know that Sarah wants to meet in public, and she also wants Arlo to be present for their negotiation. And Valerie and then we cut off with Valerie just thinking that Sarah's going to be a challenge to deal with. Yeah, she's definitely trying to figure something out. Like I mentioned before, Valerie could just give Arlo the wrong information and just like send him to the wrong place while Sarah meets like her solo and everything. Who knows? But anyway, that's it for Valerie. And next we cut to Hilford Park, where Blyke and Ison are kind of staking out the place in disguises and everything. But we see that they're actually keeping an eye on Grayson, the vigilante we met from their last escapade with Kuyo. And Grayson is actually meeting up with X-Ray. And in typically Remy fashion, she shows up late to the party. And yeah, Grayson's kind of a fuckboy. When he sees Remy, he does that fuckboy shit. He's like, oh my gosh, X-Ray, my savior, my Grace. And he even tries to like kiss her hand. He's like going like, but Blyke and Ison, they see that shit. They're like, nah, fuck that. And Remy herself is even like, ew, do not fucking touch me, bro. What the fuck is the matter with you? And as I read that, and still as I read that, I'm just like, I gave you a choice, Uru. I gave you the option. Let Lilium live. You can kill off Grayson, but you do this. This is how you do us, Uru. Anyway, he asks X-Ray for her name, to which she tells him. But yeah, he still doesn't have her name. But she tells him, she's not like, hey, my name doesn't matter, and she just tells him that she's only here to tell him that it's too dangerous for someone like him, an elite tier, to be going out to do vigilante work like this. Blyke and Ison then get up and close and personal to kind of like reinforce this after they saw that fuck shittery. But Grayson actually recognizes Blyke as being the Jack of Wellston, which Rain defeated way back when. Even telling us that the whole school celebrated after getting a single win off of a Wellston Royal. I gotta be honest, that's actually really kind of cool and wholesome. Don't get me wrong, they got their ass handed to him and like they forfeited the match still. But they were like, we got one win. You know what? Like we got one win. We took down one Wellston Royal. That's a W and a half right there. So yeah. That right there, that's pretty cool, honestly. I like seeing that. And like I said, I've touched on this before in the past. I know that in season 2, a lot of fans were like, we really want to meet more Agwin students. Can we please see more of Agwin students? And Uru's definitely giving us that. Like I said, Grayson's kind of a fuckboy. I'm not really fucking with that part of his character, but we're getting more Agwin, and that's really cool. Wait. Rain has to have been missing from school for a while now. I wonder. It doesn't. Grayson doesn't touch on that at all this episode, but I wonder if he will touch on that more. Let's continue. Let's continue. But anyway. So yeah. But after he figures out who Blyke is, and he's like, wait, you're Blyke, you're the Jack, he's able to deduce that X-Ray is Remy, the Lightning Queen. And yeah, Grayson keeps being a fuckboy. But Ison then tells him the truth. Ison says like, hey, dipshit, focus. And he just lays it on him. He's too weak and he's going to get himself killed. And if Grayson wants to make a difference, he should start a club or something. And I suspect that if he does stick around, he's going to get told about the safe house at Wellston and how they kind of figured that out and everything. I think, yeah, I definitely think they're going to like kind of spread that word and everything. Quick random side note though. Wouldn't it be crazy if like Agwin had a safe house adjacent situation or something at their school already? Like Grayson mentioned like, hey, we learned that we got a single W off of you guys. We all celebrated that victory. So like how crazy would it be if like Agwin was already like, yeah, we don't really like what if like everything Vaughn is trying to teach about Wilson, like, hey, stand up for each other, like, you know, figure things out, blah blah blah. What if Agwin was already like, yeah, like we're like, bro, who cares? Like, you know, we're all chill. We're all chill. That would actually be insane. Anyway, but after he's told that he's too weak, Grayson states that he has his own strengths and own things to offer. When Blyson asks what particular he does have to offer, Grayson tells him that his family is wealthy and that he wants to. They immediately take it off as like, are you like trying to like buy your way in? But he tells them he wants to repay them because they saved his life. So he tells them like, hey, if you guys need extra gear or something, like, I want to help out. He also throws shade at their outfits, like, guys, like, sweaters and masks aren't gonna cut it. Ison also bites back with like, motherfucker, you were wearing bed sheets and goggles. Like, don't even start talking shit. And that's honestly really fair. That's honestly really fair, Blyke. But Grayson then also points out that there has to be other vigilantes like him in similar situations who aren't aware of the danger that they're in, and says that they should try to help each other out, especially if the authorities won't help stop Ember. Grayson's onto something, and like we've seen with some other characters, people are starting to figure everything out for themselves. People are starting to question the authorities' capabilities, actually. And so I don't think that Grayson is going to deduce himself that Ember is a government branch. I think if he does get recruited in with the trio, I think they will tell him like the whole situation, like, hey, like, if you're going to be a part of this, you have to understand why this is so dangerous. It's not just that there's a secret organization that's killing vigilantes. The Bureau of Authority is killing vigilantes. Ember is a branch of the government. So who knows? Who knows? Like I said, we are starting to see some people being like, do the authorities have everything figured out? We've seen seeds of doubt, and we've started to see some people kind of like begin to put two and two together. But who knows? Anyway. So, when the trio huddles, Remy mentions that they aren't strong enough to stop Ember, and that pulling in new vigilantes could help overwhelm Ember at the very least. Now, here's my problem with this theory that Remy has proposed. Strength in numbers seldom works in UnOrdinary. What we have seen is if someone is stronger and has a boatload of experience, it can vastly outweigh a numbers advantage. So strength in numbers seldom works in UnOrdinary. We saw that with John versus the Royals. Like, it proves that. I do have, and going back, because I know some people also pointed this out in the reaction. A lot of people pointed out, well, they were able to defeat Ember, or they were able to beat Byron. Yes. I have a feeling Byron might be the weakest Ember agent, honestly. He got his ass handed to him with X-Ray, or with Ray and Kuyo, and Valerie had to back him up and everything. And also he got his ass handed to him with Kuyo and a weaker Ray, but also he had the disadvantage of Blyke being involved with that fight as well. Here's the thing though. They were able to get the advantage on him, but Fury definitely wasn't going down as easily. And Fury was about to kill Remy, Blyke, and Aizen, and Kuyo managed to talk their way out of it. This was not like, I don't think you also have to take another thing to take into account. They may already be taking into account that Blyke will be is back up in the future. They already have his file. They know that about his involvement. So like it's really weird. I mean, they're probably already expecting like, okay, if X-Ray and Ponytail are out, nobody is probably out backing them up, and he's a long distance fighter and everything. So yeah, they know about him. They're taking that into account. So I don't think that their numbers advantage will account for much in the long run, especially if what Grayson said is true. If it's an army of lower elite tier vigilantes that help them out, that's just going to be incredibly difficult. Like, people are... Remy, if you get other people killed. An army of lower elite tier vigilantes, that doesn't help. That's a hindrance to the rest of your team. If you have to fight for your life against a higher level opponent while also looking out for your weaker teammates, that's a major hindrance. Granted, if it's an army of Blyke level and up vigilantes, people who are between Blyke and Remy's level or up, yeah, absolutely, that would definitely be help. But the way it's being framed here is that it's like Grayson said, there could be people like me who don't know the danger of the situation they're in. People like you, Grayson, yeah, are getting yourselves killed because you're not strong enough. You're nowhere near strong enough. So that's my problem with that theory of Remy's. It's that strength in numbers rarely means anything in UnOrdinary. Blyke also does mention that Kuyo was able to find and track down 5 Ember agents, doubting that there's any more. I'm going to hold Blyke to that because I feel like that could be one of two things. That could be Uru's way of soft confirming there's only 5 that they have to deal with. Let's see. That would be 1 for John, 1 for Sarah, 1 for Remy, 1 for Blyke, and 1 for Aizen. No. That would be 1 for Sarah. I don't think Arlo would get involved. Aizen would definitely be too weak. 1 for Remy, 1 for Blyke, 1 for Kuyo, 1 for Sarah, 1 for John. Anyway, point is, that could be Uru's way of confirming there's 5 that need to be taken care of. That could also be they know about 5. There could easily be more. A lot of us are speculating that Zeke will become a part of Ember. I could definitely see that happening. I can absolutely see that happening. Yeah, that would be really dangerous and really bad. But yeah, Aizen then also states that they definitely do need better equipment. Grayson then asks if he's in, and we cut away. I think he is in. I think we do have a new member of the team, and honestly, I like that. I feel like we are getting a lot of characters that we're going to be following along for a bit or are coming along for the ride. And honestly, that's fine, because here's the thing. Here's the thing. There aren't many people at Wellston who want to make a difference but can help out in a meaningful way. Characters like Dylan definitely has heart. Dylan is a low tier. Ventus and Maylee could probably be a big asset, but they don't really care to help people out, honestly. They don't. They're just kind of doing their own thing, I think. Cecile's a bitch, and Cecile definitely doesn't like helping people out. Like I said, we're kind of out of people at Wellston who want to help. So if we're expanding the party by expanding it to people outside of Wellston who want to help make a difference and get involved with this, people like Grayson, who may not be the strongest asset on the battlefield, but can provide support via a cash flow and better equipment. Hey, that's really cool, honestly. That's really awesome. But anyway, one last note, but I couldn't help but reread after a second time. I couldn't help but notice something. His name is Grayson. He comes from a rich family, a wealthy family, and he's a vigilante. And I couldn't help but realize, wait a minute, that sounds really familiar. But I reached out to Uru. I asked her if it was 100% intentional. No response, unfortunately. But, there is that. But then I couldn't help but notice one last thing. Grayson does look a bit familiar to another character that we've met before. And that worries me. Because Grayson has orange hair, not the exact same shade, but his hair is a similar cut to Oren. It's orange hair. Granted, Grayson has pinkish eyes, but we have seen you get your hair from one parent and your eyes from another. And he does also mention, and like he also mentioned, his family is rich. And as we saw, Oren's got a pretty nice setup, all things considered. So, does he have a legitimate child? Who knows? But if Grayson's dad is Oren, that'd be a hell of a twist. Anyway, we then cut back to Dox, who's giving Sarah a new reopener that he's adjusted based off of the notes that John gave him. He states it's more potent. Sarah takes it, and then she goes off to browse on her laptop. She comes across a site called Vigilante Spotted. I'm calling it right now, guys. This site is 100% ran by the authorities. This is their way to find vigilantes. That way, murk them right at the spot. Yeah, definitely ran by the authorities. But Sarah browses and we see 3 vigilantes. I'm not really going to go too far into their details because we don't really know much about them. I will say they all look really cool, and I hope that we actually do get to meet them if we are going to do a Justice League type team with the vigilantes and everything. I do hope we get to learn more about them, but if we don't, I feel like it'd kind of be pointless going over them right now. But Sarah also points out that the posts are becoming more and more frequent, and it seems like William really has started a new revolution this time. Since Untitled is being spread around, and seemingly still hasn't been able to be taken down. Like they said in the last few episodes, it's just getting reposted over and over again. So, yeah. Anyway, as she thinks to herself that the vigilantes need to better cover their tracks, otherwise they're gonna get found out, something happens to Sarah as she starts gripping her chest. She then falls to the floor and starts gasping for air, and her mouth begins to foam up a little bit. I'm not quite sure how what's actually happening, but she is kind of like seemingly choking on her saliva or something. But honestly, the only thing I could think of when I read this, since Doc gave her like a new serum, the only thing I could honestly think of was,
holy shit, you fucking killed her, dude!
But the chapter immediately ends off right after we see Sarah's eyes glowing, and the episode ends. Doc's serum worked, but how well did it work? We don't know yet. Like I mentioned in the question of the day, is she going to be at full power? Is she going to be at a fraction of her power? But yeah, we're going to have to wait and see how well it works. Or if it even works. Sarah's eyes glowing in and out could just be a fake out, basically. But one last thing I'm going to end off on. If Sarah is back at full strength, Valerie knows that Sarah's disabled. She could possibly question Sarah as to how she got her ability back at this capacity, and she could learn about Doc, putting him at danger, or worse, getting him to work for the authorities. And honestly, I'm not sure which is worse for Doc. But that's going to be it for this review and discussion. Episode 323 is about to come out, and I'm excited to see what happened with Sarah. Her negotiation is coming up really soon. It could even be this episode or the next. It could be 324. But overall, I would honestly give this episode a 7.7. It ends off on a major cliffhanger, but nothing too crazy really happens in this episode. But the ace might be back for good, guys. Or since it was with an amplifier, since it was something based with an amplifier, it could also still only be temporarily. We'll have to wait and see. We know that Doc's smart, but is he that smart to get it on the second try? Who knows? But until next time, everyone, as always, see you, Space Cowboy.